fusion with the PZLW-3 Sokol, Polish-language Falcon, helicopter. These jet fighters were nicknamed the F-16 Jastatab, Goshawk, in Polish. The F-16, along with 32 Mikoyankovic MiG-29 fighters and 48 Sukhoi Su-22 ground attack aircraft, are the main offensive strike force for the Polish Air Force. There have also been delays in the offset program. The United States has not made all the promised investments in Poland that were part of the deal. Offset deals in 2011 reached $6 billion out of $6.028 billion planned, $9.8 billion at time when offer was chosen. However, only one-third of recognized offset's commitment were direct investments in Polish economy. According to a former Polish military defense vice minister, the offer for JAS-39 Gripen was a better deal. F-16s cost $3.5 billion, compared to €3.2 billion for Saab's Gripen, and €3.6 billion for Dassault offer, at a time when both currencies had a similar value. Portugal, edit. The Portuguese Air Force chose the F-16 during the 1980s to replace its aging and obsolescent LTV-7 Corsair II attack aircraft, which were no longer suitable for air-to-air combat and were facing severe logistical problems. The Portuguese foreign military sales program is known as Peace Atlantis. Peace Atlantis I, edit. In August 1990, the government of then Prime Minister Aníbal Cavaco Silva signed a letter of acceptance, LOA, which led to the creation of the Peace Atlantis I program. The funds used for the purchase were made available through the Foreign Military Sales Program, partly a payment for the use by the United States of Lajes Air Base in the Azores. Initially, the United States proposed to supply Portugal with surplus Block 10 aircraft. However, this option rested on a first order of 20 newly built F-16 Block 15 OCU, 17A models and 3B models, with Pratt & Whitney F-100 engines, which made them almost identical to the U.S. Air National Guard's F-16 ADF. Deliveries of this first order began on the 18th of February 1994, and was completed on the 18th of July in the same year. The initial group of Portuguese F-16 pilots was constituted by fighter pilots from the 302 and 304 squadrons, received training in Tucson, Arizona, between January and June 1994. During the war in Kosovo, it was seen that, while the Portuguese F-16s were recently obtained, they were no longer up to the same level as most modern fighters used by other NATO countries. In 1999, during the Portuguese participation in the conflict, Operation Allied Force, the 3 F-16 fighters deployed by Portugal were relegated to escort missions and combat air patrols due to their lack of modern armament and air-to-ground targeting systems. Peace Atlantis II, edit. During 1996, during the government of then Prime Minister Antonio Guterres, new negotiations took place concerning the possible purchase of new F-16 fighters and the modernization of those aircraft. The Pentagon approved of the deal on the 20th of November 1997, and on the 30th of November 1998, Portugal signed a letter of offer and acceptance, LOA, for 25 second-hand F-16 Block 15, 21A and 4B. That had been used by the U.S. Air National Guard. Under the program, these would be offered by the United States at zero cost and free of charge as excess defense articles under the Southern Regional Amendment to the Arms Export and Control Act, with Portugal being responsible for their transportation to Europe and for the modernization costs. Included in the LOA and in the Peace Atlantis II program was also the purchase of new Pratt & Whitney F-100 PW220E engines, 20 upgrade kits, logistics support and training. Initially, the The plan consisted in only upgrading the second-hand aircraft of the Peace Atlantis II program and of transferring the F-16s from the Peace Atlantis I to a second squadron with the mission of performing tactical air support actions and tactical air support for maritime operations, TASMO, which wouldn't require the MLU kit. Of the second-hand F-16s, 5 of the airframes were used as spare parts, and only the remaining 20 F-16s were intended for upgrade for day and night all-weather operations. By receiving the Falcon structural upgrade, the F-100 PW220E engine upgrade and the midlife update, MLU, avionics and cockpit upgrade, to equip the 301 Squadron. Current status, edit. The midlife upgrade, MLU, was performed in Portugal by the Air Force's workshops at Monterrey and Biogma in Alverca. In 2001, employees of the UNTAS modified the first 2 aircraft in a Lead the Fleet program, with Portuguese technicians observing. The first F-16 was delivered in June 2003, and the FAP personnel performed the modification of the remaining 18 aircraft. Currently the Portuguese F-16 fleet uses the AN/ALQ-131 ECM pods, that had originally been bought for the A-7P Corsair IIS, and the new Rafael Lightning II targeting pods. 1 aircraft has been preserved for public display and 2 aircraft have been lost in accidents. In 2006 the Portuguese government put 12 F-16s up for sale. On the 25th of September, 2012, Romania and Portugal started negotiations for the sale of 12 used F-16s in a deal worth $600 million. Aircraft were to be delivered to Romania over the next 5 years. On the 11th of October, 2013, the Romanian National Defense Ministry announced the signing of the contract for the purchase of 12 used F-16s. After the sale, the Portuguese fleet would consist of 30 F-16s. To enable this, 3 ex-USAF F-16s, 2 F-16Ms and 1 F-16BM, were delivered in 2019. Portuguese Air Force. Operating Units Model Location: 201 Squadron Falcos F-16M. F-16BM Air Base Number 5, Montreal. 301 Squadron Jaguars. Future replacement, edit. Portugal ruled out purchasing F-35s to replace F-16s because of U.S. geopolitical decisions made under Trump and fears that he could block needed spare parts or software upgrades required. Romania, edit. On the 24th of March, 2010, Romania's Supreme Defense Council approved the purchase of 24 refurbished F-16C/D Block 25 aircraft from the U.S. Air Force inventory. This multi-role aircraft acquisition plan was divided into 3 stages. These included purchasing 24 second-hand Block 25 F-16s and 24 brand-new Block 50/52. After the refurbished Block 25 aircraft were retired, the last phase of the program called for their replacement with 24 fifth-generation F-35 Lightning II fighters. Due to budget constraints, the purchase of refurbished U.S. aircraft failed, and on the 27th of September, 2012, Romania's Supreme Defense Council approved a plan to buy 12 used F-16s from Portugal in a deal worth €670 million. It was planned that the aircraft would be delivered over the next 5 years, and would enter operational service in 2016 after pilot training. Romania was to complete negotiations and finalization of documents with Portugal by the end of May, and with the US by September. €120 million were used to pay for the aircraft, with the rest paying for logistic support. Legislation regarding the F-16 deal was passed by the country's Chamber of Deputies in June 2013, and on the 12th of July 2013, Romanian President Ceausescu formally approved the purchase. The first batch of aircraft was scheduled to arrive in 2013. Total cost for the aircraft was estimated at $1.4 billion. Romania failed to pay the first installment on the aircraft, even though it was delayed from the 3rd of June to the 3rd of August 2013. On the 11th of October 2013, Romania completed the purchase of 12 Lockheed Martin F-16 fighting Falcons with MLU package from Portugal under the Peace Carpathian program. The package was worth $252.6 million /Euro 186.2 million, and included 9 former Portuguese Air Force aircraft and 3 former United States Air Force aircraft supplied to Portugal for the resale under the U.S. Excess Defense Articles program. 9 aircraft were single-seat and 3 were twin-seat. Portugal would receive €78 million for the sale, and the rest would be spent acquiring and upgrading the surplus USAF aircraft and associated equipment. The first F-16 was scheduled to be delivered in 2016, with initial operational capability achieved in 2017. The Romanian Armed Forces intended to buy 12 more Lockheed Martin F-16M/BM fighting Falcons by 2020 to equip a second squadron. After that, Romania planned to buy 24 F-16s of a newer generation by 2025, probably Block 50s. On the 27th of September 2016, the first 6 F-16 MLUs entered service with the Romanian Air Force. The first F-16 squadron was the 53rd Fighter Squadron at the 86th Air Base in Fitati. In March 2019, the Romanian Ministry of Defense launched the procedure to procure an additional 36 F-16 aircraft. In April 2019, the Romanian Ministry of Defense announced the Romanian Air Force would procure an additional 5 F-16s from Portugal. The 5 aircraft were received until March 2021. On the 4th of November 2022, a contract for an additional 32 F-16s was signed with Norway after several months of negotiations. The contract was worth €388 million, and the first airplanes arrived in 2023. The first squadron equipped with Norwegian F-16s will be the 48th Fighter Squadron based at Campiaturi, while the second squadron equipped with Norwegian F-16s will be based at Mihail Kolnisen. The F-16s are expected to be retired between 2034 and 2040, according to a draft law published by the Army in August 2024. Turkey, edit. The Turkish Air Force is the world's third largest operator of the F-16, following the US and Israel. Turkey became one of the nations to indigenously produce the F-16, under a license from Lockheed Martin. Turkey initially received in total 240 F-16s. However, a further 30 were ordered in 2007. All Turkish F-16s are built by Turkish Aerospace Industries, TAI. Each new aircraft had to visit American territory under the terms of the Peace Onyx foreign military sales program before being turned over to the Turkish Air Force. In 2005, Turkey signed a $1.1 billion avionics upgrade package, based on the USAF's Common Configuration Implementation Program, CIP. In addition to this, the Turkish Air Force put a firm order for 30 more F-16 Block 50+, to be built by TAI. As of 2016, all existing F-16s except some Block 30s are now in Block 50 plus Viper configuration. On the 24th of March, 2019, the Turkish State Secretariat for Defense officially confirmed that a further upgrade with Aselsanductozgur for the modernization of TRF's entire F-16 fleet with a domestic AESA radar and a new indigenous self-protection suite. As of 2023, the US approved the sale of 40 new Block 70s and 79 modernization kits. Ukraine, edit. See also, F-16 Training Coalition. The Ukrainian Air Force has expressed interest in the F-16. On the 18th of May 2023, the US government told CNN that it would not block any requests by their allies to transfer their own F-16s to Ukraine but would not send its own F-16s to Ukraine. The question of training such pilots remained unanswered, which would likely involve some US involvement. 2 pilots were sent to the United States to train on F-16 simulators for 2 weeks. A US Air Force document found that Ukrainian pilots learn how to operate the aircraft in 4 months. Of the 2 Ukrainian pilots, one was a MiG-29 flyer and another was a Su-27 pilot. The biggest issue was their lack of proficiency in the English language and their grounding in Soviet-era tactics. On the 19th of May, US President Joe Biden said that the US would allow Ukrainian pilots and crew to be trained on the F-16. Denmark has agreed to help train Ukrainians on the usage of the fighter. Denmark's Defense Minister Troels Lund Poulsen said Denmark will now be able to move forward for a collective contribution to train Ukrainian pilots to fly F-16s. No start date has been announced for such training to commence. Once it does, it could take 6 to 9 months to properly train Ukrainian pilots and crews to use the F-16. Learning English is an important step for any training course. President Zelensky has given a flat assurance to President Biden that Ukraine won't use F-16s over Russian territory. In August 2023, President Biden allowed for the delivery of F-16s by their European allies. On the 20th of August 2023, Zelensky stated that the Netherlands would be handing over up to 42 F-16s to Ukraine. In addition, Denmark announced its intention to hand over 19 aircraft to the Ukrainian Air Force, for a total of up to 61 aircraft. 4 days later, on Ukraine's Independence Day, Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre confirmed that his country would also provide 5 to 10 aircraft, depending on how many could be made operational. On the 22nd of December, the Netherlands Prime Minister Mark Rutte said that they were preparing an initial 18 F-16s for delivery. On the 5th of February 2024, Minister of Defense Kajsa Ollongren announced the Netherlands would send 6 additional F-16s, following the cancellation of the planned sale to private military aircraft operator Draken International. On the 1st of August 2024, Ukraine received its first F-16s, according to Associated Press. On the 4th of August 2024, President Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed that Ukraine had started flying F-16 jets, concluding the long-awaited arrival of the U.S-made fighter jets close to 29 months since the Russian invasion. According to Forbes, these are the ex-Danish F-16M/BM equipped with pylon integrated dispensing system, PIDS, and the electronic combat integrated pylon system, ESOPs, both produced by Elbit Systems and Terma. PIDS ejects metal chaff and flares while ESOPs houses passive defenses to complement the active chaff and flares, including the AN/ALQ-162 jammer and AN/AR-60 missile warning system for triggering the passive defenses. This is likely to counter the Russian S-300 and S-400. In total, Ukraine is set to receive 85 F-16s from their European allies. However, there are also not many surplus F-16s in those allies' inventories. 22 days later, Ukraine lost its first F-16 during a Russian attack on the 26th of August, 2024, killing one of its top pilots. By the end of 2024, Ukraine was expected to have received 20 F-16s. The remaining jets would be delivered in batches throughout 2025. In October 2024, Dutch Minister of Defense Ruben Brekelmans confirmed that the first of 24 pledged F-16s had been delivered. On the 13th of December 2024, a F-16 of the UAF purportedly to have shot down 6 cruise missiles in a single sortie. Middle East, edit. Bahrain, edit. The small country of Bahrain originally ordered the F-16 in 1987, agreeing to buy 8 Block 40 F-16Cs and 4 F-16Ds under the Peace Crown program. These aircraft arrived prior to the First Persian Gulf War. After this, with the increasing military presence of the United States, Bahrain sought further enhancement of its air force and the replacement of its F-5 Tiger II fighters. Initial talks centered on the F-16N being withdrawn from service with the U.S. Navy and U.S. Marine Corps, but ultimately, it was decided to purchase 10 new Block 40 F-16C aircraft. Bahrain ordered an additional 16 F-16 Block 70s in November 2017. Egypt, edit. After the Camp David Accords, Egypt actively sought to re-equip its military with Western weapons. Thus, it has become a large customer for the F-16 fighting Falcon. No fewer than 42 F-16A/B Block 1540 F-16C/D Block 32 and 138 F-16C/D Block 40 fighters had been delivered to the Egyptian Air Force by 2002, in the frame of 6 separate peace vector programs. In March 2010 it was announced that Egypt would purchase an additional 20 Block 52 aircraft, 16 F-16Cs and 4 F-16Ds. The Egyptian Air Force operated 220 F-16s at that point, making it the world's 4th largest F-16 operator. 4 of the F-16s ordered were delivered on the 3rd of February 2013. Raising the number of aircraft delivered to 224. The remaining 16 were to be delivered through 2013. Following the 2013 Egyptian coup d'etat, the Pentagon had said deliveries of the jets would continue. On the 24th of July 2013, however, President Barack Obama announced the F-16 deliveries would be halted due to continuing political unrest. In March 2015, the U.S. announced the resumption of the deliveries of the F-16s, the last of which was delivered in October 2015. Israel, edit. The Israeli Air Force, IAF, is the second largest user of the F-16 fighting Falcon, second only to the U.S. Air Force and its reserve components. The IAF achieved the type's first air-to-air victories when its F-16s shot down 2 aircraft, a Mi-8 helicopter and a Mikoyan-Gavik MiG-21 fighter plane, both Syrian, in April and July 1981 respectively. The IAF took delivery of its first F-16s earlier than expected after the cancellation of the sale of F-16s to the Iranian Air Force. The IAF had announced plans to buy 75 F-16s as early as 1978, and deliveries were carried out under American Foreign Military Sales Program Peace Marble I. These F-16A/BS received the Hebrew nickname Nets, Hawk. Peace Marble II witnessed the delivery of a further 75 Block 30 F-16C/DS to the IAF. Israel's F-16 fleet was further expanded by Peace Marble III, which brought 30 Block 40 F-16Cs and 32-seat F-16Ds to the IAF between 1991 and 1993. These newer models were nicknamed Barak, Lightning, in part to reward Israel for its restraint during the Gulf War. A shipment of 50 US surplus F-16s and F-16Bs were delivered in 1994. In a deal worth $4.5 billion, Israel also ordered 102 additional Block 52 plus F-16Ds, designated F-16I and nicknamed Super Storm. Deliveries of these took place between 2004 and 2009. In July 2013, Israel began a program called Tazza, Boldness, for the purpose of turning some military bases into sales lots for obsolete IDF equipment. Older F-16 models would be sold off, or sold for scrap if there were no buyers. Main buyers were expected from Latin American, Asian, and African countries. Later that month, Major General Amir Eshel ordered the immediate shutdown of 2 squadrons of F-16A/B fighters, without any earlier notice to the squadron's air and ground crews. The shutdown was caused by cuts in defense budget. Additionally, it was claimed that one F-16I could replace several F-16s of older models. The aging F-16A/Bs were planned to be decommissioned in 2017 with the arrival of the F-35 Lightning II. However, the decision was made to advance the retirement of these aging platforms. One F-16A/B squadron continued to serve as an advanced jet trainer unit until the deliveries of Alenia Air Apache M346 Masters began in 2014. The final F-16A/Bs were retired on the 26th of December 2016. Iraq, edit. The Iraqi Air Force was looking to buy 36 F-16s in late 2008 in place of phased-out Russian and Chinese fighters Saddam Hussein's regime acquired before and during the Iran-Iraq War. In the spring of 2009, the decision was made to spend $1.5 billion on an initial order of 18 F-16 fighters. Later purchases could bring the total buy to 96. The first batch was to be delivered by 2014, with all 36 currently ordered delivered by 2018. The first F-16IQ Block 52 fighter was delivered to Iraq on the 5th of June, 2014, making it the 28th country to receive the F-16. The fighter was the first of 6 two-seat F-16D models. F-16IQs can be armed with AIM-9L/M Sidewinder and AIM-7 Sparrow air-to-air missiles, AGM-65 Maverick air-to-ground missiles, and paveway guided bombs. Due to advances made by Islamic State militants in mid-2014 which forced the evacuation of contractors from Balad Air Base, Iraqi F-16s were sent to Tucson, Arizona, where Iraqi pilots trained on their aircraft. 4 F-16IQs were delivered to Balad Air Base on the 13th of July, 2015. The last F-16 was delivered to the Iraqi Air Force on the 14th of November, 2017. Jordan, edit. Like Egypt, Jordan opened the door to modern American arms sales by reaching a peace agreement with Israel in 1994. Jordan then arranged for a lease of air defense F-16s from the United States with an eventual transfer of ownership. The program was successful, providing Jordan with 16 F-16A/B fighters in 1997 and 1998 under Peace Falcon I program, AJAF recognized the need to give these aircraft a midlife update, MLU, in the next 2 or 3 years. 2 F-16 Block 15 ADF aircraft crashed over the years of service. A second Peace Falcon 2 program delivered a further 17 aircraft of similar type. All of the 17 F-16 are/B upgraded by Thai to F-16 MMLU standard. In 2005, Jordan purchased 16 F-16 Peace Falcon 3 from Belgium. Later the Royal Jordanian Air Force, AJAF, pursued more second-hand purchases in 2006. 6 F-16 Peace Falcon 4 purchased from ANLAF, an additional 9 F-16